I'm Lauren Love. I'm our student ministry director. I'm so glad that you are here this morning. We are actually doing an amplified takeover of main service. So you're going to see that our students are playing all bunches of prominent roles in our service today. So you saw the ones that were in the band, and these ladies right here are going to be speaking in just a moment. But I also wanted to take a moment to call out some of our other students who are doing some things that you might not recognize. So we know that Jax Beth was our MC, so we've got him going on here. In our tech room, we've got Scarlett Benson, Nathaniel Sheneman, and Nate Liu. Woo-hoo! And then downstairs in Mo Kids, we have Evan Peterson and Journey Smith. So we can give it up for them. They're playing with your kids, probably schooling my son in football, I don't know. So I do want to say, though, that our students being a part of service, this is not something new, really. Our students actually volunteer and serve in many aspects of a Sunday morning service, and so that's actually not that different. But what is a little bit different is we are going to hear from this panel of ladies, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Libby Hayes, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Gia Zappelli, and I'm in 8th grade as well.
I'm Melissa Higgy, or Melissa Wagner. I'm not in a grade, but I've been doing student ministry for almost 15 years.
So before we get started, I just do want to tell a quick story about our middle school girls, and this story involves some of the people on this stage here. But last year we were having our end of the year picnic, which is usually just games and food and all sorts of stuff. And I'm sitting on the cement pad enjoying the weather, and I see this group of middle school girls walking out to the front yard area by the street, holding homemade signs. And I thought, might need to pay attention to what's happening here. So I just watched them, and they are standing right in the front lawn of Momentum's church holding these homemade signs that say God loves you. And they're just flashing them around like, hey, as I'm moving my mic. Sorry, Rachel. And so they're just waving them all around, and as people are driving by, they're honking, and they're getting all excited and waving and telling people that God loves them. And I just let them go because I thought it was super sweet. And then later on in the evening when I was cleaning up, I see them in the corner over there by the supply closet holding hands and praying for every person that saw their sign. And just being like, I hope that they know and appreciate that they are loved by God. And I just thought, what a testament to the spiritual maturity and just how awesome these girls are. And so that's part of the reason why I picked them for this panel, is just because I know that they have a lot that they can teach you guys. And so, that being said, I would love for them to describe sort of the adults that they've had in their lives that have helped lead them towards a relationship with God.
So I was raised very in the church. I've gone to the church ever since I was born. And my parents both display what it looks like to be good, godly parents. And they raised me in the Word, and they showed me what it looks like to have a godly marriage that follows what God designed marriage to be. And then at church, we have all our amazing leaders in Amplify, Rachel Gregory, Melissa, Crystal, and they also all have helped direct us on our path, and they often encourage conversation amongst us to get us really starting to talk about our faith and grow together. And then my mom especially, she really has always showed me what it looks like to be a good, godly woman of God. She showed me what it looks like to be an amazing mother, and she often is always serving at the church. She's here right now, I think. And she's always volunteering. She leads groups. She engages in conversations with her friends here, and she's pointed many, many people to God, and I'm forever so grateful for her to show me what it really looks like to be a Christian.
So for me, it was my mom and dad who kind of helped start my journey. They heard about Momentum on a radio ad, and that's when they started going to the movie theater. And after that, they kind of stopped going for a little bit, and then they drive past the sign that says the church for non-church going people. And that's when they started going, and that's when I started going to Mo Kids more. And that's when my journey kind of started. The leaders there in Mo Kids were really great and led me in the right direction. And I'm very grateful for them, because they're just great people in my life and such a big influence on where I am today.
So at what point do you feel like your faith became your own? Like, when did you take ownership of your faith and it wasn't about your parents, but more so about you?
I've always gone to a Christian school my entire life, and I have the privilege of having these adults who don't just teach me the word, but they also demonstrate it in their classrooms, and they show it around campus. And in 4th grade, I remember my one teacher, she really just connected with us as students, and she really demonstrated God to us at such a young age. And I remember that really hit with me, and she made me then want to go on my own and read the Bible and really understand who God was and what my purpose was. And she's one of the big reasons that I'm able to say I'm a Christian today.
You got it, Gia. At what point did you take ownership of your faith? That's what you're looking for. You got it.
Thank you, sir. So it was around 12 years old when I started understanding the concepts more and kind of growing my faith with Jesus. And with all the godly people around me, that was really easier to do. And the more I grew older, the more I learned and the more greater and stronger the love of Jesus was for me. And it started impacting my life more and more as I got older.
Great. We also have Melissa Higgy on our panel today. And like she said, she's been involved in student ministry for so long. And if anybody has a student ministry and they are blessed enough to have Melissa on their team, things are good for them. At least that's how I feel. So, Melissa, you've been able to watch these middle school girls and beyond grow and take ownership of their faith. So what does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, okay, so yes, I've been doing this for a while, and it's been super awesome. I really love seeing the students just learn about God, learn to love Jesus more, and I really feel like it's interesting because they come in as 6th graders, and many of them, like they said, have gone to Mo Kids, and they've learned so much, but it's just such a new experience, also transitioning into middle school too. So I feel like sometimes it maybe takes a little bit to kind of get up to speed or, feel like you are growing in your faith, but it happens so quickly. And usually after a year or even less, or after attending some of our camps or our events, it's just, there's such a difference in how they approach their faith. They start owning it for themselves, doing things on their own outside of Amplify, and it really, helps them move from coming to Amplify to like see their friends and socialize, which is like a huge part of what we do and really important too, but then they're taking it seriously and they're really diving deeper into what we're learning inside and outside of Amplify.
So I know that everyone has come to their relationship with God in a different way. Like everybody has a different journey. So I do want to encourage you right now that even though we are talking about the idea of taking ownership of your faith, that's kind of what we're focusing on today, it doesn't mean that you have to have grown up going to church like these ladies did. There's nothing to say that you can't take ownership of your faith at any point in your life. So I want to encourage you that even if you're like, I don't have that background, like that's not what it looked like for me, that's okay. I believe that God can redeem anything, and that includes your path or your story or where you've come from. And so I just want everyone to feel encouraged today that taking ownership of your faith is something that you can do no matter what it's looked like for you to make your way to God. And so both of you ladies have been baptized and are followers of Jesus. So describe what led you to come to that decision to be baptized.
So I talked about how in 4th grade I had this teacher who she really is what kickstarted me to really want to deepen my relationship with Jesus and take it as my own. So the summer before that 5th grade year, after that 4th grade year, was when I decided to get baptized. Baptism's always been something on my mind because just being raised in the church, but that really helped me to decide to make that decision.
For me, it was more so like a push, and I just couldn't ignore the Holy Spirit's push. And I really wanted to get baptized one day. And the more services I went to, the more I just felt like I wanted to get baptized. And there was one day I told my parents, and I'm like, I want to get baptized, like, right now. And they're like, we got to wait like a week or two. And I was so sad about that. But yeah, just God's push, I just couldn't ignore it, and that's when I decided to get baptized.
All right, so Melissa, how would you describe the role that adult volunteers in Amplify have in helping our students grow?
Yeah, so I feel so like blessed to be able to like work with these students every week. And when I first started in student ministry, we didn't have a ton of adults. We had what we needed, but we didn't have a ton. And I just love that there are so many more adults today serving in Amplify, because we really need to have adults from different parts of the city, different backgrounds, just a lot of diversity, because it's such an opportunity to really meet with individual students to help them grow in their faith, because every student responds to a different type of adult. Like I like middle schoolers, not necessarily high schoolers or elementary school students. So that's like the area that I feel like I work well in, and others work in different ways. So I feel like that's just an opportunity for us to take like what we're strong at and help our students to grow in their faith and just have fun with them and come alongside their parents and grandparents and other family members as we help them, kind of along that journey.
So I would want to say, man, the role of adults in our students' lives, both MoKids students and Amplify students, it just can't be understated. You heard these girls talk about the role that their parents played. And so if you are a parent of a child, MoKids aged or Amplify aged or beyond, the role that you play in helping them grow in a relationship with God is so vital. Just what you model for them, what you teach them, it's something that is for sure a huge impact in them being able to grow in a relationship with God. So I just want to encourage you in that role. It's a blessing that God has given you. There's a verse in Deuteronomy, chapter 11, verses 18 through 20, and it says, "Fix these words of mine on your hearts and minds, tie them as symbols on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your homes and on your gates." And this verse is really just speaking to the idea of that teaching your kid to love God is not a Sunday morning thing, it's an all-the-time thing. It's something that it's when you lie down, when you get up, when you're going where you're going, whatever it is that you're doing in the mundane acts of life, that's where it shows up. And so just know that role that you have and lean into it and know that it's a blessing from God. And then if you are not a parent of students in any way, your role is super vital and important as well. They talk about, there's actually been a ton of studies talking about the impact of adult mentors on students. And one in particular comes from a study called Renegotiating Faith, and it's out of Canada. But it says that young adults who had home church mentors were more than 3 times as likely to connect with new churches or parishes after moving out of their parents' home and to connect with a Christian campus group after starting post-secondary studies. And so there's been countless studies that have shown that the more adult mentors that students have, the more likely they are to continue following Jesus beyond leaving their parents' homes. And I just think that that is such a huge blessing that we have. And so I would encourage you as just adults, as a member of our church, to know that you play a vital role. And because of that, our students are lights to the people that they come in contact with. And so, girls, how do you feel like you show the love of Jesus in your schools, in clubs, wherever that you are at?
So at school, I always try and talk about Jesus amongst my peers. Sometimes it feels like we just talk about it in the classroom, but then the moment we step out, we don't really talk about it anymore, and we never really learn what each other's faith journey is like. So especially with my close friends, I really like to have those conversations and just check up on each other and see how we're going with our walk in God. And then here, sometimes me and some girls from Amplify will go and just catch up and talk about our faith journey amongst each other, both personal and then on a more just sharing advice level. And then another thing I do is I also like to try and find people who I can use to hold me accountable to certain things. So such as like when I am deciding, maybe I should read the Bible more this year or try and pray more. It's nice to have people who you can also use to hold you accountable and try and make you just check up on you and be like, hey, how are you doing with reading the Bible, or how are you doing with praying? It's important to find those people in your life as well.
In my school, I don't have a lot of Christian friends just because it's a public school and there's just not a lot of people who practice religion, which is really unfortunate because I do like to talk about my relationship with God, and in my school I just can't really do that much. But in a way I can do that with a more indirect message is wearing a shirt that has like the gospel on it, and that's something I really enjoy doing. I'm wearing one right now, and I wear them all the time because it's kind of spreading the message of Jesus for the people who read my shirt without having to directly tell them about Jesus. So they can kind of they see that I'm a godly person, and I also I want to be when I'm older. People will look at me and say, that person knows God, just because they see the way I act and the actions that I do, and that's a goal for me when I'm older.
All right, so we've talked about taking ownership of faith. So, ladies, how would you say that you take ownership of your faith in terms of your prayer life?
So I have a tendency to get anxious about everything that happens. It's like the slightest thing can happen, and then it goes down a spiral into more spirals, and then all of a sudden the next day I've decided I'm going to die. According to all the Google research I've done on whatever thing I've medically diagnosed myself with. And over the summer, I've worked on going to God before anyone else, especially when it comes to my anxieties, and just giving him that burden, because ultimately he is the only one in control of that, and I don't have control over that. So in going to him, it really just gives you a peace, and it's helped me to then focus my time on other things and to be more obedient to him by going to him in prayer when I start to feel anxieties coming.
When I was younger, my dad would usually say like a quick prayer before I go to bed, which I've memorized. And when I got older, that kind of stopped for me, and he just stopped doing that. But that's kind of when I started my own prayer, and instead of something that I've just memorized and would recite before I go to bed, it would be something more. Like I would talk about my day, and if I have any struggles or something if I want to pray about someone, I'll do that before I go to bed, and it can be for a while because I really enjoy that time with Jesus, that I know that he'll understand everything that I am telling him, and he'll be there to comfort me.
Melissa, in what ways have you noticed them take ownership of prayer?
Yeah, so it's really cool because we get the chance to pray together at Amplify, and honestly, we come to the point, and if you've been to a Mo group, okay, it's like, okay, we're going to pray. Who wants to pray? And it's crickets, right? Because at an adult Mo group, we're all a little nervous, maybe a little self-conscious, but honestly, at Amplify, through the environment we fostered, the girls will all be praying. We actually almost every week, we all pray. We learned a thing at camp where we do a one-sentence prayer because everyone can say a one-sentence prayer, right? And we let the girls pass if they don't want to, but I think that type of environment and these girls, committing to praying for each other helps newer students want to pray out loud, even for something, that may seem small, but it's big to them. So I've seen them also just really take to heart praying for their friends and what's really going on in their lives, a lot about school, friendships, family stuff, and they ask each other what we can pray for, and we make sure to pray for that every week, and I know that they're doing that, outside of Amplify too.
So, in terms of Bible reading and Bible study, how do you feel like you have taken ownership of that?
So one thing I like to do is I like to have two different plans going at the same time. One where I'm just reading through the whole Bible in a year, and then the other one where I am focusing on a certain book of the Bible or a certain section. Currently, I'm in Jeremiah, and there I like to dive into the verses more and really understand the meaning versus just reading the words. So that is one thing I like to do.
So for me, I'm on the same plan as Melissa and Libby. It's reading the Bible in a whole year, and I'm not really great at committing to things, and especially reading the Bible, just because I feel like sometimes I'll get a little bored, but it's so yeah, I just can't really commit to the Bible that well. So the plan that I'm on with them, I started on day 1, but then I kind of stopped, and today is day 40. So I'm not really great at committing to reading, but I really do think that me reading the Bible and is really good for me. And when I'm able to actually do that, I love to journal in my Bible and take notes on the side, just because it's something I really enjoy, and I think that learning it is really important for me and for everybody.
Melissa, how have you seen these girls take ownership of their Bible reading?
Yeah, we had that 1-year plan, and one of the things I love is that we talk about reading the Bible, and we do it, and it's not always perfect, which is totally okay. But Libby's one of the people who always find a Bible plan for us in the Bible app, and yeah, mixed commitment maybe from myself too, but it's something that gets us going and keeps us top of mind. And I love seeing the girls bring their Bibles, because some of them are more like, Gia, you're always carrying your Bible around, and I know that you're taking things seriously, and you're trying to read when you can. And we do things like these Bible plans together. And over the summer, we actually had a group that met at Rachel Gregory's house, where we did a book study, which was kind of a book and a Bible study all in one. And it was about just learning about your thoughts and things like anxiety and other things, and how that relates to what God has to say about those things. And these girls came in the summer. We don't have Amplify in the summer, so this is just a totally extra optional thing. We're busy in the summer, and they would come as much as they could, some of them pretty much every week, and we would just learn together about what God is saying. And I see that through these types of things. They want to do them. They're very excited to do them, and we have a lot of fun with it.
So since you guys have taken this step to follow God with your life, how have you seen God work in your life? How have you seen your life change?
So one thing I talked about earlier was the anxiety, and one thing I find myself doing is, not always with anxiety, but anytime something just happens and I really need to talk to someone, I find myself now going to God first in prayer. And before I'll go to anyone else, I always pray to him, because he is the only person who can really give us a true peace. And ultimately, it is in his hands for his good plan. So that is one of the things I've seen myself doing a lot more as I've grown in him.
Yeah, ever since I met God, my life has completely changed. With stuff that has been harder for me when I was younger is really easier, and whenever new problems arise, I know that God will always be there to comfort me and to just listen to me when I have struggles. And instead of me having to deal with them on my own, I know that someone else is there to deal with me, and that's something that's completely changed my life and made my life a lot easier in the aspect of dealing with problems and just situations that would be a lot harder to deal with without God.
How have your friendships with other followers of Jesus made a difference in your relationship with God?
Well, what I talked about earlier, one thing I really think is very important is mentors, to have people who you can use as spiritual guidance counselors to just help as an older person to guide you in God's wisdom and to give you good information and more insight into what it looks like to be a Christian. And another thing that helps is having accountability partners and just friends you can talk to about your faith, such as I have some friends at school and then some friends at Amplify, both who I can use to just open up about what's going on in my life and what my life and what my walk with Jesus is looking like at that time. And you can use them to just hold you accountable and remind you, hey, how's this going? Or hey, how's that going?
Yeah, so the best friendships that I have with Christian friends is definitely in Amplify. And they're one of the best friendships that I have in my whole life. And I'm very grateful for the people at Amplify, because they led me to where I am now, and I am very happy with that. So there's an example that I won't get into detail with, but me, Libby, and Riley all went to Mings, and we were just able to talk about our personal life and our Christian life. And we set a timer for an hour, but we went over that limit by a couple hours. So, but that was really a great conversation that we had, and I've been really meaning to want to do that again, just because there was so much comfort in knowing that I have godly friends who will always be there for me, and that's just something that I really am grateful for, and that I know God's love is real just because of that fact alone.
Melissa, how have you seen the girls encourage one another and help each other grow through their relationships?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been around student ministry a long time, so I've seen a lot of groups of students, and honestly, these girls are definitely one of the ones that I've seen to be the most supportive of each other in everything that we do, and it's just one of the ways that they go out of their way to, be there for each other at Amplify, and welcoming new students is so important as well, and they just bring people into the group. There's a lot of girls that invite their friends from school or clubs or activities that come in, and they don't necessarily come on Sunday mornings, and they're just like immediately a part of Amplify, and they come to our camps as well, and I just see that in the way that they support each other, that extends to their friendships, outside of Amplify, and just the ways that they support each other through some of the tough things that they've gone through.
I learned so much from our students, and I think you can see a little bit of a snapshot of that just by hearing these ladies talk today. From engaging in Bible study to serving to loving one another to growing in relationships, they really do set an amazing example for that. And so there's a verse in 1 Timothy that I know is used often when it comes to talking about young people, but it's so applicable to our students that I feel like I have to share it. And it's in 1 Timothy 4:12, and it says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for all believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." And I can't think of a better example of that than what we've just seen here and what we continue to see all throughout Amplify, because that is exactly what our students do. They set examples for all believers. I know that there are families that come to church on a regular basis because of the influence of their student, and I also know of people who have come to Mo groups because of the influence of their student. And so we don't want to underestimate our students, because they really do have an amazing way to lead people no matter their age. And so, Melissa, what advice do you have for anyone, student or adult, who is trying to grow closer to God?
So I would say that you just have to take a first step, and maybe just one step. I sometimes like to try and commit to like 50 things at once. Like, I don't like to wait. I'm not very patient. And it gets too overwhelming. So just like the things we've talked about today, start reading your Bible, start praying. One of the things I really encourage is to join or do something at Momentum, like join a Mo group, start serving, because you want to surround yourself with other people that love Jesus, because it will encourage you and it will spur you on in your own faith. A couple years ago, I led a book club called Find Your People over the summer with a bunch of other women, and in that book, it just talks about how to develop like great friendships, Christian friendships and otherwise. And one of the things in that book is just you have to go first. You can't wait for someone to invite you. Like, I hope that you get invited to something, but take the step and go first in something, whatever it might be. And that will really, I think, spur you on further into your faith.
So students who are in the room right now, just keep pursuing God, keep asking questions, and keep seeking out relationships that are going to help you grow closer to God. And adults who are in this room, don't underestimate the profound impact that you can have on students. And then I would also say that no matter where you are in your faith, taking ownership of your faith is something that is worthwhile. Taking ownership of your faith moves you from being a passive consumer of information on a Sunday morning to being an active participant in your own faith, and we believe that God can do amazing things with that. So can you guys give it up for these awesome students and leaders?